Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our event called Sing Opportunity in Devastation and Stories to Inspire. We're busy with a series right now, and this series is on entrepreneurial excellence. And last time, episode 25, we spoke a little bit about branding. And Ed asked the question is, how are you doing in the field of the brand? Touched on what a brand actually is. Um, what is the brand in the eyes of affected or the stakeholders in a company, and so on and so on. And Edit was wonderful. I mean, the video is really, or the audio is available as a podcast, in terms of and entitled "Build Your Brand by Walking Your Talk." So it's very, very rich. So I want to encourage you that if you're listening to this and you really want to have an edited version of the playlist, then you go into Griffin Enterprise Development on YouTube, and you search for this particular episode 25. But welcome, Ed. A very special welcome to you. We missed you last week, and we can't wait to hear what you have for us this week within this series that we are continuing with. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Shock. Yeah, sorry I wasn't here last week. I was kind of occupied, and I'm going to come on to that in a moment because very relevant to what we're talking about here. The, uh, the series that we're working on here is entrepreneurial excellence. And just to remind listeners, I picked about 8 items because entrepreneurs are generally speaking have to wear many, many hats. They might not be expert in all of them. They might have someone who does their finances for them, maybe even outsources their marketing, maybe even outsources their sales. They may have a HR consultant, but they've got to know about everything and they've got to judge how well or badly this is happening in their business. And what we're providing here is kind of like a handbook, an audible handbook, which gives chapters and some detail in some chapters of what those sections mean and invites you to rate yourself as an entrepreneur and rate your business, or as a senior manager and rate your division or department, uh, on how you do in each area. The objective behind it is to see if you've got this all covered, great, wonderful. Then you just carry on and spend most of your time banking money, presumably, or buying new luxury properties or investing in yet more companies to build your empire. But if you lack in some areas, that's the area you should be focusing in, not the areas you're doing well. So that's the purpose behind the exercise. And 2 weeks ago, we did talk about brand. And then last week, I wasn't here because I was facilitating a strategy planning conference of a large NGO. And a fascinating experience it was because this is very well known, old established NGO, well known brand, but has moved away from its original purpose. And we looked at a lot of what we've talked about here. And one of the things that we considered during our strategy planning session, which was a great success, by the by, wonderful success, it was a hugely interesting thing to facilitate. There were about 25 people in the room and about another 10 or 12 online to the room. And some of the debate was lively. The level of innovation was just incredible. At one stage, I said I was gobsmacked that people could be so innovative in such short times. So it was really fun to do this. I love my job. Boy, I'm really, really envious of myself that I can get a job like this, which is kind of nice. So what we talked about during this session as one of the items on the agenda was to say, what is the meaning behind our brand? When people see the brand of the organization, what do they believe our meaning is behind this brand? And when we examined the brand of this organization, we found that the brand itself didn't have a special meaning to many people. There were many of these um, examples of great intellectual discussion to devise the right phraseology which would express exactly what we did and wasn't working at all. So we had a slogan which probably most people looking at it would say, well, what's that all mean? And we had a mission statement which was far too long and far too detailed, and that nobody could remember anyway. And so we said, what's the meaning behind this brand? Why are we here? What is the purpose of this organization on earth, and in South Africa in particular? And we came up with a very, very simple statement, a sort of 6-word statement that you could use as a brand logo. And in fact, we changed the brand, and that's not something that you do lightly, um, to reflect this as the slogan below the brand. So people could look at it and say, that's what those people do. And then we um, also considered the mission statement. And we said, this is not what we're actually doing on the ground. It's not even what we aspire to be doing on the ground. It comes from quite a long time ago, and it was one of these which was carefully crafted and passed around, and it was no longer valid. So we created a 1-sentence mission statement that everyone could buy into, and which really expressed a lot of very, very intense feeling. So we were quite proud of that. And we also looked at the values, and we took out all the motherhood. I call them motherhood, and that's probably a rude word, but I took out all the we took out all the statements of the nature which I mentioned in the previous episode. Our employees are our most important people, while you're planning to retrench people into a country with an unemployment rate of almost half. Um, that doesn't make them important. That just makes you a fool. So we changed the values completely to reflect what it was that we actually delivered. So we were quite good at that. We said our meaning behind our brand is a crucial part of our um, of what we have to do, and because our brand is highly visible. And that brings me on to the next topic, which is brand identity. And what is the identity of the brand? Where are we going to? Where is it going to be seen? What does it look like? What are the qualities of that brand? What is the personality of that brand? And the first usual part of that is the company's logo. Now, first question I ask when we talk logos in branding exercises is, do you need a logo? And if you do need a logo, why do you need a logo? Um, because a lot of organizations actually don't need a logo. If you are running an organization that does you're a diesel mechanic for trucks. Why are you trying to produce a fancy logo? You're a diesel mechanic for trucks. That says it all. So if you are Jack's um, diesel mechanic for Jack's Diesel Mechanic Services or Diesel Engineering Services, then do you need a logo? Um, or does the name and what you do say it all? And I think we overstress the logo because unless the logo is very well known, you typically will not be identified to your logo. You know, many of the people we are talking to are not Coca-Cola or Microsoft or any of these famous, or Nike or any of these famous brands. We're not going to be identified typically by our logo. And again, if I can sound a cautionary note here, if one of these days you get in one of the companies that's going to redesign your company website and your brand and your logo and everything else, you better be sure that you need that because design companies love changing logos, designing new logos. And they will, in all probability, come up with 4 or 5 designs and give them to you as samples of their logo design. And I mean, this is just irresistible in all advertising organizations, all graphic design organizations. It's irresistible for them to be creative with a logo. And then they'll present it to you and they'll give them detailed meaning of each aspect of that logo and why those colors and why those shapes and why that particular font. And then you ask yourself, well, what was wrong with what we had? And when someone glances at my logo, which will probably be for about half a second, will they understand these deep interpretations of the symbolism of what's inside that logo? Keep it simple. And don't change your logo unless there's a good reason for it. A client of mine some time ago designed, and I was part of that team, that decided they need a new identity because things had changed in their world and society had changed, and they felt that they needed to change with it. And they did a massive project to change that, of which the logo was the most minor part. The whole part was the meaning behind the brand. They took a particular stance and they expressed that through the colors, through the designs on the walls of their offices, through their uh, stance in public, through their policy manuals, through their way of approaching. They redesigned many of their products and services so it gave meaning to the new identity of this company. And it was a very well done and very, very effective exercise. But that's not for everyone. So just remember, design companies love redoing logos. And the next thing is, if there's a slogan, what you are known for. And there's some very famous slogans, for companies like Nike, Just Do It, and Coca-Cola, and all sorts of famous, where they've become catchwords, where they've become household phrases. Your company is unlikely to have something that will become a household phrase. So keep it meaningful. It's good for Nike to say just do it because they can, through the whole of their marketing campaign, interpret what just do it means. It is unlikely you can. Keep it simple. And again, as in this organization, we simplified the logo and this, not the logo. The logo remained unchanged because that has a very wide acceptance. but we simplified the slogan so anyone looking at it and reading it would say, aha, now I get it. And then the mission statement. And as I've said, we simplified the mission statement down to something that was a one sentence thing that everyone could comprehend. It was something that we could put easily onto a letterhead, um, into a signature, even on an email. It's something that people could get their heads around, which said, this is why we are here. And that to me, I was taking my own medicine here. That to me was very, very important. Everything that was done in this strategy plan session followed what I believed in, because otherwise I wouldn't be being true to myself. So that worked very well. And then the next area is, the just the identity. Where's it seen? How prominent is your identity? If you have a pink and yellow logo and your building is painted dark green and has orange window frames, it's not going to sit very well. So try and keep your identity common across the board. Don't mix and match in your website and your other public documents, your letterheads and everything else with colors and fonts and all that. Keep it the same so that your identity is pervasive throughout throughout everything that you say to the public. Don't forget word of mouth. Much of what happens to your business will happen because someone has a conversation with somebody else in which they mention your name. Jacques and I are on Clubhouse because Jacques told me about Clubhouse, and I said that's interesting, and we decided to get together and put on this podcast. Now, Clubhouse advertising, Clubhouse marketing, Clubhouse logo, Clubhouse everything was irrelevant. It was a word of mouth that brought this one together. And if you examine most transactions in the world, or many, many of the transactions in the world, what brings people to your business is word of mouth. An organization I belong to, which does counseling, has a facility where you can book counseling appointments. And that counseling appointment facility works via WhatsApp. And at one time, um, the WhatsApp number appeared in a student guide to where to get help directed towards students at that particular tertiary education. And it was picked up by somebody else and put out as a tweet on Twitter. And from Twitter, it was retweeted by someone who had several 100,000 followers there. And this company was deluged. This organization was deluged. They really struggled to cater for the tidal wave of people wanting help. Now, all of that is just the power, well, it's the power of social media, but essentially, social media is word of mouth. One person telling another. The difference in social media is it's one to many instead of, it's a broadcast instead of an individual conversation. Don't underestimate that power. And it works both ways. If your brand says something to people, if it's a clear identity and it's attractive to people and you're fulfilling a need, that brand can go very viral. But it works the other way as well. If your brand says one thing and you do another thing, and this is very, very common among very, very large organizations, but also where it shouldn't be, among small organizations where they say they're going to do one thing and then do absolutely the opposite. Because the people who are managing the brand aren't the people who are managing the ideas and the budget. And they don't talk to each other perhaps as much as they should. So be very careful about that one, word of mouth. All of your visual designs and clever slogans and everything else goes straight out of the window if you get into that loop. And you might have been focusing all on that, and you've got a message going out to the community, which is either a great message, as was in this particular case, or a very, very bad message about your brand. And we've all seen those around. Two other points that I'd like to make just before we close off. The one is that your brand message must be pervasive, it must go through everything. It must be on all your documentation, it must be on all of your um, public appearances, it must be mentioned in every radio interview or television interview. It should be in every press release that goes out. That's not the logo, that's the brand. Perhaps best enshrined by the mission statement, of which the slogan is typically a shortened version. It should be in everyone's mind. That's not only your people, your staff, but it should be in all your stakeholders' minds as well. Your auditors, your lawyers, your suppliers, your business partners, your financiers. They should understand exactly why you are there. One of the biggest issues in attracting finance is obscurity of purpose, of why you are there. And if a financier doesn't understand why you are there and why you should be there, what need you filling, they're not going to finance you. You need clarity on these kind of things. So now I'm doing a lot of you need, you need, you need. But these things I feel very passionate about. And I feel very passionate about it because we have in the past, especially since um, the onset of pervasive digital marketing, we have become the, the subject of digital marketing techniques. And many of those relate to the digital arena. So the phraseology becomes phraseology which is internet friendly, search engine friendly, but it may not mean much to your customers. So please be careful about that. And the last one I wanted to just touch on is your staff. How well are your staff informed? We talked about the Wilson learning model in a previous session. Do they understand the big picture? And the brand is your big picture. If they don't understand why we're doing this, they won't be perhaps as motivated as they should be. In certain organizations, people go to work because they believe with absolute passion in that cause, that particular brand. And it might be something like a manufacturing business. But you will have all seen this happening where people go in, where you go into a company and you can just see that people are there because they want to be there. They're involved, they're engaged, they're part of the solution. Very much more so in many NGOs and obviously in church, in religious organizations and in political organizations. Try and get that kind of feeling among your staff, and the world opens its doors to you. Jacques, I think that's about as much as I've got, and I think we're just about out of time.
Um, yes, thank you, Ed. As you ended this last one, which is always interesting, is it just makes me think, and I think the thread, if someone actually goes to listen to all these podcasts, the thread has been is there is a come along, a tag along in terms of what entrepreneurs do in the business. Recognize that your people that you are currently employing are invested not just in the daily tasks that they are doing, but also invested into why your business exists. I mean, this is a beautiful discussion, is, really understanding the meaning behind the brand. But once you are able to communicate the meaning behind the brand, now we're talking about staff understanding, aligning with it, engaging with it. And then, I mean, the phrase that comes to mind, Ed, is, are the staff the ambassadors of the brand message? Does it literally ooze you know, out of all the interactions with customers, with themselves? You spoke about, and I just want to link that. You spoke about the brand message being all pervasive, but what more beautiful, powerful way is there than also seeing that pervasiveness in how the employees have engaged with it, how they identify it, how their language reflects it. It's like thinking about staff as the megaphones to the brand message as well.
Yeah, that's and you can think of organizations where that happens, where they are uh, organizations of all types: commercial, religious, political, economic, where the staff are actually enthused and will go out and defend and argue with people and tell people, evangelize almost your brand. And what more beautiful situation could you have? Very difficult to fail if you had that kind of things.
What a wonderful phrase. I mean, there's no fitting moment than to just leave it right there. Staff, well, not just staff, but all the stakeholders in a business evangelizing as well. Love it, Ed. Spreading the word with conviction, with fervor. So, Ed, no, thank you very much for this week's edition and being inspired to really revisit our messaging, revisiting why we do what we do, and is there real meaning behind it, and get that accurate. So, as usual, we invite you to listen, to learn, but more than anything else, to do. Apply what you learn and see the difference in your business. So thank you, everyone who is here with us today listening, and those who will be listening to this podcast in the future. We trust that you take your business from strength to strength by applying these little nuggets as they appear, as Ed shares them. So thank you, and thank you, Ed. Until next week.
Look forward to talking to you then, John.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.